A while ago, I heard someone talking about how a parental figure in their life seemed to be avoiding or resisting doing something they wanted them to do. They wondered aloud, sort of theorizing, about how this parental figure might be anxious or have anxiety, which would explain why they were finding the task difficult. I can't remember what the person expected them to do, but it was something they believed the parental figure would or should want to do, given their role in the family structure. What I noticed, though, was that this expectation might have been assumed by the person based on their idea of what all individuals in such a role should do, how they should act. They had an expectation that may have been based on their idea of what a parent does, that preceded any agreement or discussion with the actual parental figure about the expectation. The presumption about anxiety was a diagnosis of something wrong with the parental figure, because there must be something wrong, as they're not fulfilling their role as expected. The idea that we all fill or play roles in each other's lives is a common way to conceptualize what may be expected of us in our relationships. Linguistically, it's an efficient way for us to draw conclusions, or at least make educated presumptions and predictions about how people will act towards each other, as well as a guide for how we're expected to act in social settings. Using this conceptualization, anyone listening to this can consider firsthand the roles they have played in the lives of others, as well as the roles others have played in their lives. Parent, child, sibling, mentor, partner, boss, employee, sugar daddy, etc. It's a way to make sense of and communicate about how we relate in our respective culture. I would argue that the expectations we might experience in our roles are informed by our culture. This means culture in the usual way, which is to say nationally, like the differences between Eastern and Western cultures, but also something like subcultures, including how expectations may differ from family to family or workplace to workplace. It takes reflexivity and reflection to notice or acknowledge the expectations we have for others without their knowledge. Much of the time, though, our expectations of others and what they're willing to do, or how they view their role in our life, may overlap or align without any need for discussion. In some ways, I believe expectations may emerge how I would say naturally. There are survival imperatives for parents to be caring, protective, and nurturing. These, being in the interest of survival, are arguably intuitive where they emerge as cultural expectations. There may be nuances between cultures and subcultures regarding what care looks like, what's necessary for protection, or how best to nurture, but they all seem to emerge from a similar place. Expectations also seem to develop when we move from a descriptive understanding to a prescriptive worldview. If I observe the world around me and I notice that people who fill certain roles appear to be acting or presenting in patterned or similar ways, this conceptualization is descriptive, as I'm just describing what I'm seeing. To then generalize, though, that all men do this, all women do that, etc., it can begin to become prescriptive, which is to say that all men and women should do this. Though if a person identifies as something, then anything they do as that something is what that something does. Whatever I do as a man is what a man does, because I'm a man doing it. If somebody has an idea of what it means to be a man, and I do something that contradicts it, I say they must update their idea of what it means to be a man to include whatever I did, rather than argue that I am not a man. I think expectations can naturally emerge as we consider institutions and the general rules of society in which we exist too. Expectations based on laws and how everyone can best coexist, or ones that are aligned with the perceived rules of the game, or how to survive modern life. Natural or otherwise, though, as we grow and learn to use language to make meaning of these expectations, I think they may come to form biases and judgments. When I have an idea of what being protective looks like based on my family culture, for instance, and I see something that contradicts this in my environment, I may make meaning of the phenomena as something unprotective or harmful. What I might view as protective, someone else may see as controlling or coercive. When it comes to roles and what we expect of the people in those roles, our biases and judgments may skew or inform how we evaluate those around us. If we have an idea of what a mother is supposed to do, which is likely based on what we've seen mothers do, and we see a mother doing something else, or not doing this, we might suppose they're not a good mom. Similarly, we may judge ourselves based on internalized expectations. If we access some external, communal, familial, or societal view around what a good mother is, or whatever the role is in question, We may shame ourselves if we don't meet these supposed expectations. As the person I heard talking about a parental figure theorized about anxiety, I heard shaming. I thought there could be any number of reasons this parental figure isn't doing what you want. They may have absolutely no clue that you want it. They may find doing what you want impossibly difficult for some reason not visible to your senses. Instead of shaming, I say, let's be curious and investigative. If you're not sure, ask. Empathy and acceptance are how we can get the most out of each other, and they are the cure to shame. Someone who believed they could not be a good parent, sibling, partner, or whatever, may thrive if provided with empathetic and accepting conditions. It is in these conditions that they may, perhaps for the first time, empathize with and accept themselves, which may allow them to self-actualize to be who they want to be, without shame blocking the way. But shame is a powerful and arguably necessary and generative tool in some ways too. Shame provides a means for marginalized individuals to gain ground and better manifest an equitable environment. Depending on what world you want to live in, shame may be a useful strategy when appealing to others and creating the change you want. When shame is good or bad depends on your political views, or how you think the world should be. I see it all the time in video games. Back in the day when I played Call of Duty, camping was famously shamed. In Dead by Daylight, killers camping and tunneling are famously shamed. If we break down these shaming terms in Dead by Daylight, like camping and tunneling, it goes like this. I have an experience I don't like or want, due to what I understand to be another person's choices. I want that choice to be taken away from them, made impossible, or to be made punishable by some authority. Failing that, though, I want nobody to make that choice. I take my unwanted feeling, connect it to the experience that caused it, and create a shaming message to try and dissuade others from doing what I don't want them to do. Any moral arguments about the use of shame, I think, hinge on the word marginalized. Nietzsche's idea of the relationship between the lamb and the bird of prey comes to mind, where the lamb will shame the bird of prey, while the bird of prey pities the lamb. This is to say that those in a lower or weaker position will shame those in higher or stronger positions to try and claim power, or, as I have said, manifest the world they want. Someone might say that being difficult to catch as survivor is the best means of countering a tunneling killer. If that someone lives in a position where they have had the opportunity to play the game for long enough to be experienced, with good enough conditions, meaning high-end PC equipment and low ping, that seems reasonable. They might look at a low playtime survivor who plays on console with 50 ping and pity their lack of experience or knowledge about console's limitations. It might be reasonable for them to say, just switch to PC and play more to get good. But maybe that player must work full-time to meet the demands of their life and has little time to spend learning the game. Maybe they inherited the console from an older sibling and can't reasonably afford to invest in a PC for better performance and ping. In essence, these two players might not have the same opportunity to succeed. I think it's incredibly difficult to cater to both players and keep the game alive, though. On one hand, if the low-experienced console player has their every complaint catered to, it might diminish the experience and skill expression of the high-experienced player. The higher the skill gap, though, the less accessible the game may feel to new players. I guess this is where the MMR system is meant to help. What's the real-life equivalent of MMR? Taxes? I don't know. While there is a parallel we can draw between good and bad players in a game like Dead by Daylight, and privileged and underprivileged people, or maybe rich and poor people in capitalism, the stakes are much higher in real life. We can choose to play or not play a video game, but we don't choose to be born. Capitalism is a game with rules that none of us agreed to or had a say in. A capitalist bird of prey may shame a capitalist lamb as lazy or pity their stupidity, holding them entirely responsible for their own failure, as they see themselves as entirely responsible for their own success. The lamb may shame the bird of prey as amoral or evil for hoarding wealth that could improve the quality of life of so many others. Can you tell I don't plan much of what I'm going to talk about when I write the scripts for these? I started off talking about roles and expectations, and like all good video essays, ended up somewhere political about capitalism. I see how I got there, though. We have expectations to which we hold one another based on our prescriptive beliefs about roles and how we want the world to be for us. We use shame, for better or worse, to manifest our desired world, which leads right into politics as we get into how we believe the world should be. There was one point in the middle for a moment where I championed empathy as the cure to shame and an entry point or lubricant to self-actualization. While the rest of what I said around it was intellectual and more of an open question or exploration of something, I think this point is something I truly believe in. You are a consciousness or an awareness that pilots an unchosen body in a shared reality. What you experience in your awareness and the meaning you make of it will affect which choices seem best or which choices are easy or difficult. I say, let's understand each other's points of view with this in mind as we shape our expectations and be descriptive, not prescriptive. The same person I opened the video about told me at one point that they recently started saying, "You would think that," to others in conversation, especially where politics were concerned. Though I joked about how dismissive it might have sounded at the time, there really is something so intelligent about it as an approach. Consider what circumstances and experiences might have shaped another's views, and consider for yourself how your views have developed in response to your own life. The next time you play against someone in Dead by Daylight who mains ghoul, just think about the depravity and abuse they must have experienced in their life to choose to do something so heinous. It might be the only time in their life they feel any sense of power or success in their otherwise dark and depressing life. And most importantly, recognize the shaming messages you have internalized, and decide whether you want to live with them. Abandoning them may be easier said than done, but if you can find a way to do it, you may be freer to be yourself, or who you want to be, unless you want to be a ghoul main.